So in the last video, we gave a brief demonstration of the querySelector method and how we could edit the text content after we've grabbed an element from the DOM. Here I want to go a little bit farther and talk about different ways we can use querySelector and how it's targeted. So as we saw before, we use document.querySelector to grab an H1. We could log it, we could change its text content, and that's great. If we look at our index.html, we've got an H1 and we've got multiple paragraphs. And it might not necessarily be the best thing to only be able to target by something like a P or an element name. After all, which paragraph do you want to grab? Because with just P, the query selector is going to grab the first element it finds. So it's going to scan the document, the DOM, and as soon as it finds a target, it's going to grab it. Well, what if I didn't want that first paragraph? What if I wanted the second paragraph? Well, we can add something called an ID to any HTML element. And so an ID is meant to uniquely identify a single HTML element. If you have an ID on the page, there shouldn't be another element with the same ID. That's the convention. Will HTML get away with it? Yes, but you should never have something like this where you're repeating IDs. First paragraph and first paragraph doesn't make sense. So elements, any element on an HTML page can have ID, and with that ID, you can grab a hold of that element with that ID with a hashtag. So hashtag, let's do second paragraph. That says grab the element with the ID of second paragraph. And the hashtag indicates that this is going to be a CSS selector. So we'll talk a little bit about CSS selectors. CSS selectors are meant to mirror the ways that web developers can target elements in CSS, and we can target IDs in CSS with hashtags. So with the ID CSS selector, we can grab the paragraph, the second one, console log it, and then change its text content to hello world. So if we refresh the page, you'll notice that we changed the text of that second paragraph. We effectively grabbed that second paragraph in the DOM and changed its text content, and the browser updated the HTML accordingly. So we don't have to just grab elements by an ID. There's also something called a class that we can add to elements. Now, classes are more lenient than IDs, and they're actually meant to be used multiple times. So if I have multiple paragraphs that are meant to be represent, say, a description like I have here, I can add a class to each one with a string text, and they both have the class description. And so I can also target an element by its class. Instead of using a hashtag, though, the CSS selector to grab a class is the period or dot. So period description, which matches the class, will let me grab a paragraph. And so notice that since I had two paragraphs with the word description, that obviously it can't grab, well, not obviously, but it's not able to grab both. Like I said earlier, querySelector is going to grab the first element it finds that matches what you're putting in here. And in this case, it happened to be the first paragraph. And I know what you're thinking, Michael, what if I want to grab both the paragraphs and do something with them? So right now we're only able to grab one with the regular querySelector method. Well, what we can do is use the querySelectorAll method. And what that's going to do is it's going to grab a list of the nodes in the nodes of the DOM. And so now I have paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, but it won't be as simple as taking that list and setting each of their text content to hello world. I have to go a little deeper than that. So what I could do with our regular JavaScript code is I could loop through that list, and let's make this variable represent. So let's all descriptions. So we can loop through it. I is less than all descriptions dot length I++, and we could say all descriptions I dot text content equals I, just for giggles. So in theory, this will grab the first paragraph and set its text content to I, which will be 0, and then loop once, and it'll set it to 1 in the next loop. So if we refresh, there you go. So you can grab a single element from the DOM with querySelector, and if you want to grab multiple elements, you'll use the method querySelectorAll. Thank you for watching.